So hey there everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Rich, and as promised, I am going to be doing some more regular updates on my YouTube channel, and I'm going to be talking more about travel photography and landscape photography as well. And since I live full-time out of an Airstream and work out of the Airstream, I do have some interesting opportunities to get some pretty amazing photos here in the Southwest. So today is October 4th, 2018, excuse me, and today, Aurora HDR 2019 came out. So first thing I did this morning when I got up was download the new version of Aurora, which is made by Skylum. They also create another program called Luminar, which is another photo editing program as well. Right now, you'll notice that I'm in Adobe Lightroom, and I'm using Lightroom to manage all of my photography. And you see that we're staring at some pictures here. Some pictures from my new Mavic 2 Pro drone. So I actually had bracketed these. I've got 5 images here in a stack. So I was using the auto bracketing feature on the Mavic 2 Pro to set up for some high dynamic range photos the other day over Watson Lake. And so I've got this stack of 5 properly exposed, underexposed, overexposed, more underexposed, and more overexposed. I'm going to close that stack up real quick. And so looking in here at the proper exposure, I got to say the Mavic 2 Pro is doing a really good job. And the colors are definitely popping a lot more than, let's say, on my Mavic Pro, my original Mavic Pro. So the Mavic 2 is already delivering more for me for still photography. I know people are debating about some sensor issues and things. I've got to say, for still photography, I'm liking what I'm seeing, so I'm not going to go way down the rabbit hole into a debate about that. So I use Lightroom as my hub to manage all of my images. So whether it's drone photos or 5D Mark II photos or the Sony A5100 photos or even iPhone photos, I manage everything in Lightroom right now. And I will mention, so Skylum, the folks who made Aurora 2019, they're also responsible for a program called Luminar, which is another editing program which I find interesting. And supposedly this year they're going to be getting photo management built into Luminar as well. The whole reason I got very interested in Aurora HDR and in Luminar was because I've been looking for an alternate to Adobe Lightroom. Now, I've loved Lightroom for a decade, and it's been my #1 go-to photo management tool, but I'm getting a little tired of the Creative Cloud, so let's just put it out there. Adobe's Creative Cloud is annoying me. I would rather purchase standalone versions of the software. When I do travel with the Airstream, sometimes I do go to places with no network connection, and quite frankly, having the Creative Cloud complain to me that I'm not connected while I'm out somewhere, I don't need that message. I don't need the sign-in reminders. I'm paying my license, guys. Leave me alone when I'm out in the field doing photo work, all right? So the clouds become very annoying. So Luminar is very interesting to me last year when it came out because there was a promise of an alternate photo management system. Unfortunately, they haven't gotten there yet. They're saying it's probably in the next few weeks. So I'll be looking forward to it. But that was one of my big disappointments with the launch of Luminar last year, was that there wasn't a library management or a digital asset management, as some people refer to it. It wasn't there. But so we're not here to talk about Luminar. My apologies. We'll see what happens with Luminar in the near future. But what we are here to look at, and we're looking at it together for the first go round. I played around with Aurora this morning, but now we're going to go through and discover things together. And so I've got this image that I'm pretty satisfied with, and I think a minor edit in Lightroom would probably be all this needs. This is a decent photo. This isn't something that you're going to be, selling in a gallery or anything. It's not the best composition, but it's a pretty scene, and people who've never been to a location like this will come away thinking that it's a very nice photo. Let's hit the G key here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my stack of 5 photos, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And I'm going to give you a warning to save you from the headache that I had this morning. So I just right-clicked after selecting these images, and I have an option to edit in Aurora HDR 2019. That's new. So when I installed Aurora this morning, I also installed some plugins that came with it, plugins that allow it to talk to Photoshop and to Lightroom. Do not use this edit in for Aurora 2019. I did this, and what it did was it created 5 new TIFF files for me. So duplicates of each of my raw photos here. To start up the launch. So it popped open Aurora 5 times with 5 different images. So using this edit in, don't do it. If you're doing a single image that you want to bring into Aurora, go ahead and use that edit in. But what you're going to want to do is go down to your export, and I'm going up to Aurora HDR 2019. I'm going to go with the source files. I don't need to copy the images with Lightroom adjustments because I haven't done any adjustments. So I'm going to go right with the source files, and we're going to open Aurora now. So Lightroom is now processing things, and it will launch Aurora in a moment. Things might slow down here. I want to give you fair warning. So I'm using I Show You. So we've got Lightroom, Aurora, and I Show You on. And I've got to say that my 2017 iMac does not perform like my 2014 MacBook Pro. My little MacBook Pro is actually faster than this newer iMac that I have. And so we won't go into the complaints about that right now. We're in Aurora, and I'm going to choose auto alignment. Why am I choosing auto alignment here? Well, so I auto bracketed these photos. So I told the drone to shoot 5 frames at different exposures. The drone's got a fantastic gimbal on it, but if it's windy, if you're shooting this on a windy day and you're looking to make an HDR image on a windy day, that gimbal might be knocked around just a little bit, enough to mess up your alignment. So I'm definitely doing the auto alignment. I'm doing ghost reduction for sure, and I'm just going to go with the 0 EV on this one. And I'm also going to address chromatic aberrations just in case. All right, I'm going to click out of here. By the way, so one of the big new things that they've been talking about with Aurora 2015 is this quantum HDR engine. So apparently faster and smarter. I'm going to go ahead and click on Create HDR. And while we're waiting for this, I'll tell you, so I've been doing HDR for over a decade now. My first HDR software package that I was using was Photomatix Pro. And so I followed along with Trey Ratcliffe's career, and Trey Ratcliffe is one of the people behind Aurora HDR and Luminar. And so I've always enjoyed his images. So when he announced Aurora HDR the other year, I jumped on board. But I hadn't been as happy with Aurora as I was with Photomatix Pro for years. So I'm hoping that the improvements here in Aurora are enough to really make me feel better about this software package. So for drone operators, doing HDRs might make a lot of sense. So you're actually doing this multiple layer image, and quite possibly you can get a little more out of it than just straight out of the camera. Now I can do edits in Lightroom as well, and Lightroom does a great job, but figure we're giving Aurora a second go round. So here we go, and this image is definitely changed. So one of the first things looking at Aurora, this is not a full tutorial on Aurora, by the way, but so here we are with the before, and here we are with the after. So just the initial blending of the layers definitely gives the sky some more pop, gives some more color to the rock formations here. Is punching up my reflections down here as well, so I'm liking that. We've got our little before and after. You can also hold down the little I key just to see the difference. So this has definitely punched things up fairly nicely. So, all right, over here we have our new history drop down, which isn't very different from the old history drop down. We can crop things in here, and we can also turn off the bar down below with the collections, and we can turn off our right hand sidebar as well. But this is where all of our HDR tools are and all of our filters, so we'll most likely be using these. Now I'm not going to sit here and go through a major edit on this, but what I am going to do, let's go look down at the bottom here. Right now it started me out in Essentials, so these are the Essential HDR presets. I can also look at the collections, so we've got Essentials, we've got Landscape, we've got Architecture, dramatic, artistic, Trey Ratcliffe looks, Surge looks, and Randy looks. And we can look at all of our looks. We can also make favorites, and we can create our own looks as well if we want to. So I'm going to go over to landscape since this is a landscape. And down here on the slider bar down at the bottom, this little film strip bar, we've got several types of presets available to us. Now on the right hand side, before I start hitting the presets, so here's all the filters that we have. Well, and we could add more filters, but so here's our basic filters. When you apply a filter, it turns the label yellow. So let me just click this down and let me just do something extreme here. I'm just going to hit Smart Tone and punch it all the way out. Wow. And now I'm going to close this. And now you see that the HDR Basics or HDR Basic is lit up yellow because it means that I did something in there. I can turn that off and there we go. We're back to normal. And actually I'm going to open this back up and I'm going to put that Smart Tone with just a double click on any of the words. It'll put you back where you were. And you can also reset all, or you can vary what you're resetting. We've also got an adjustment brush here, so we could paint the sky and leave the foreground around. Kind of works like Lightroom as far as a brush tool, and like Photoshop as well. So they carried this over again, and I think it's a great feature, so that's a plus with Aurora. I do like that. So if you're going to be setting up your own HDR settings and not using any of the presets, you can go in here and you can actually add filters, reset filters. You can collapse all the filters. I like the single view mode so that when I have one thing open, other things aren't open, because it gets real messy in this bar really quick. All right, so let's take a fast look here. So I like what I'm seeing with the initial merge, like I said. That doesn't look too bad. And it looks like the alignment is pretty good. We could zoom in here and see, is this looking sharp to us? And that's, oh, well, 200%. It's not quite the sharpest image. I've definitely got some weird haloing around there. You might see that right there along the edges of the rocks. There's a little glowing line. And that's where I had clicked to stop chromatic aberrations when we first brought this in. So that's a little concerning, and I'm actually going to go back to fit to screen. On print, people most likely aren't going to notice this unless you're doing a big print. And online, if you're just using your images for display online through social media outlets or other sharing sites or on websites, people will probably look at this and say, ooh, I like this. But when I look in and I start looking at some of those edges, and I see that edge glow along there, I know that there still are some aberrations going on. So the new engine hasn't quite fixed it yet. And there was a little bit of a breeze that morning, so maybe I'm not perfectly aligning. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here. All right, let's go down and just try out the realistic landscape setup. And so now that I've chosen realistic landscape, you might have seen that this definitely changed a little more. And when we look over on the right-hand side, so this is something that I do like very much. We have over here on the right-hand side, when we use one of the presets, it shows us all of the filters that were used in the preset, and it shows us which filters were actually physically used. So somebody did something with color here. So they actually pulled the saturation back by -15, and they punched the vibrance up by +15. They also added a little to the color contrast. So let's just put that back, and I'm going to change the vibrance back down. And so I just made a couple of adjustments with color. I can also go over here and just turn that part off really quickly. So the color adjustments done here that I just did with saturation at -15, putting vibrance back and putting the color contrast back, this is looking pretty accurate to the scene I saw. Maybe I'll push up the vibrance a little more, and maybe we'll slide that color contrast up just a bit. But I would say this is a pretty accurate rendering of the Granite Dells in Watson Lake early morning, well after sunrise. So that's not bad. Some of the other presets that they offer, so let me close that one up. So by the way, you can learn from the presets. So that's something that I find really valuable with Aurora. The fact that they show you with the yellow lettering that something has been done here, this is a great place to start learning. So they did some work with color, the HDR Enhance, image radiance, adjustable gradients, and a little bit of vignetting, which, yeah, you can see around the edges. If I switch over to enhanced landscape, whoa, wow, that thing is out of control. And that's definitely not what the granite dells look like in the morning. We can once again go through here and take a look back and forth, and wow, that's just a cooked image. And so I like HDR a lot, but I've learned to really dial it back. Back in 2008, did I like doing cooked images? Yeah, I sure did. I had a lot of fun with that. By the way, down here on the film strip, you can change the amount, how much your changes overlay. So as you see, going back and forth, so I could reduce the amount if I like the overall look of what it's achieved. By the way, if I don't, right up here, here's my history. So let's go back to our realistic landscape. There we go. And so there's that history bar. So you can always go back, and I want to be right back there because this one's fairly realistic to me, and it feels right, except for, let's pull that vibrance back. That feels much more like the scene I saw. So as you can see, under these collections, you have multiple presets, and those presets can be used for learning. So what I would suggest, if you start using Aurora, if you're new to Aurora, go ahead and use the presets and then fine-tune things to your taste over here in that right-hand filter column. So that's one of my big suggestions for you. They've also got cool landscapes, so let's look at that. Ooh, that makes for a much bluer morning. And you know, it was kind of a cool color temperature that morning, but I'm going to go with that realistic, and I'm just going to dial that vibrance back and dial that color contrast back because I think that's the one I want to go with for this image. Also down here we have our collections. So we've got essentials, we've got our landscapes, architecture. You can also get other HDR look collections from Skylum, and you can also get lookup tables for lighting as well. So you can actually apply LUTs. Now, the one other thing that I do find interesting about Aurora HDR is that I can actually make new layers up here. So here's the layers palette, so we can make a new adjustment layer, image layer, or a new original image layer. I'm just going to create a new adjustment layer, and I can brush things with the adjustment brush. So right now I haven't chosen to do anything, but let's look down here. And let's see, let's go with an HDR Enhance, and let's punch up the HDR Clarity. So that just affected everything. That affected my whole image. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the brush. So this has gotten a little obnoxious with the Enhance. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to close that Enhance, and I'm going to grab my brush tool. And when I use this brush tool, it's going to apply those changes only to where I brush. So now my foreground still looks proper, and what I'm brushing right now is just the sky area. And if I look over here on the right, I'm just clicking out here, see the adjustment layer, see the white area, that's where I brushed. So let's go in here and let's play with color. Let's just get obnoxious. Let's punch the vibrance through the roof, punch the saturation through the roof. And if I woke up to a sky looking like that in the morning, I would hook up my Airstream and start running. So I just wanted to show you this to show you that you can do these brush adjustments on your adjustment layers. So we could do another adjustment layer for the foreground here. And let's go ahead and do that. New adjustment layer. And what we're going to do now with this new adjustment is I'm going to go back into color again, and I'm going to suck the life out of this. So now we've got this black and white everything. But I'm going to paint that black and white in here. And I'm just doing extremes just to show you. So I would never call this a happy photo or, you know, present this in a public setting of, hey, I think I did a good job. But so as you can see with this adjustment layer, I've just desaturated the foreground and that cool cloud area is in my background. Now, realistically, we don't want any of this. And I kind of want to get back to my original. So what I can do is go back up to that history and let's scroll down, and there's all my brushes. And there we go. Back to Aurora HDR. Look, realistic landscape. And there we are. And like I said, I do like that. Other than I'm going to dial that back and dial that back. So let's call this one good enough. And we're going to bring this back in to, let me see, let's turn that off. We're going to bring this back into Lightroom. So what I need to do now is I'm just going to go up here to the upper right corner and I'm going to hit apply. And we get to take a look at the original 0 EV versus this slightly adjusted HDR from Aurora HDR. So far, I'm liking the fact that their new engine seems to have toned it down a bit. The 2018 version, everything felt really overcooked to me over and over again. It really did. So there's our stack of 5 photos, and there's my new HDR. So I'm going to close that stack really quick. And let's look at the HDR. So it even tells me Aurora HDR 2019 edit. And the original is just DJI DNG. And we can do a comparison between the two of them. So I'm just going to grab them, and I'm going to go down here to my compare tool. I'm going to hit my tab key. So taking a look at this, the Aurora HDR produced something decent. It still is a little overcooked, and I probably should have played with that a little more because I think the rocks have a little too much color in them. But I could do something very similar to my HDR edit here. I could do something very similar in that original DNG, so in my original RAW file. So I could enhance that one just with Lightroom enough to get it closer to this HDR. So in the end, what am I thinking? I think I'm going to be playing with Aurora HDR some more over the next few days and weeks, and I will do a follow-up on this. I think I'm going to do a full tutorial on Aurora HDR 2019 as well. Right now, off the cuff, I'd say this is all right, and I'll be interested to play with it some more and see what else I can get out of it. I do like the new engine. I can tell that there has been a change. Now, for drone photographers, you know, we're out photographing various things, and also we're usually, when we're flying, we're doing video as well. But I think as the new sensors come along with the newer and newer drones, we're going to see a lot more improvement. The Mavic 2 Pro, I've seen a lot of improvement with its color range right off the bat, irregardless of the issues that people are bringing up about the sensor on that. So if you're a drone photographer and you're imaging some really unique places, I think HDR has a place in your arsenal of tools for sure. And I think that Aurora HDR might be a good choice. If you don't have any other HDR software out there right now, Aurora might be an interesting choice for you. Don't forget, if you're a Lightroom user, you can also do the HDR merge in Lightroom and see how well that does. And we might show one of those through on the next one. I wanted to get this video up today just to say Aurora 2019 is out there. And for drone photographers, it might be something you want to investigate. If you'd be interested in a longer series on Aurora HDR specifically, with drone photography or with just standard terrestrial photography, leave me a comment down in the comment section below. Also, check out the show notes because I do have an online course about drone photography specifically, and I have another online course about my Lightroom workflow that I've been using for over a decade, and that even incorporates drone images into that Lightroom class as well. So check down in the show notes, and I've got a special discount code for anyone who's watching the YouTube channel for any of my online classes. All right, everyone, with that, I'm going to wrap this up because we're coming up on 25 minutes. And I've got a couple other things to do, and I've also got to edit this and put this up onto YouTube. So that'll take a little bit of time. I hope that you got a good overview and a feel for Aurora HDR, and especially if you're a drone photographer who's interested in doing still images from their drone. I think HDR really does have a place for drone photographers, and it's just utilizing HDR in a fashion that really matches up with the scene you saw. It's about your creativity. That's the big number one. So I think things are a little overcooked in this one, but we didn't take a bunch of time to tone it down. And depending on comments, I'll spend some more time putting some things together and putting some images together with Aurora HDR from both my Mavic Pro drone and my Mavic 2 Pro drone. All right, everyone, thanks for stopping by the channel. Have an awesome day.